Hey guys, it's Etch here, and today we have a brand new series and actually a brand new game. For those of you who don't know, Planet Zoo was released I think a couple weeks ago, and I would describe it as somewhat of a spiritual successor to Zoo Tycoon, and so therefore I'm playing it, obviously, and I'm building a new, I wouldn't really call it a zoo, it's more like a wolf sanctuary. It's called Howling Woods, and it will feature one main animal, that being the timber wolf, which we'll build a massive exhibit for, and basically make a big exhibit. I think this series was split into two parts. So we will have the building part of the series, and then we'll have after that we might have a few buildings interspersed, but most of it will actually focus on the storyline and following the wolves through their lives. We might have events in which the staff might get sick, or there might be an animal escape, or something I'll make up, as we go along. But we'll have fun, and we'll see what comes up. But as you can see that now, I'm actually building the entrance building for the zoo. I cannot delete that building behind it, unfortunately, because game rules. But I can build around it to some extent. So that's what I'm doing. I can't delete beyond that. What I'm building right now. There's like two squares in the front of the building that I can modify, but I can't do anything else. So that's what I'm up to. I've used this log theme a lot throughout the build, which I think really looks nice, but it is a little rustic, and I kind of like it. And I think I later carried on into like a little area for statues. I have some deer statues, and also a sign that's coming up. I built the sign, which isn't here yet, but I built the sign separately in, I think I built in another zoo and then transferred it over here. I made it a testing zoo of sorts, just to see if I like the style and that sort of thing. There you go, there's a sign. To see if I like the style and that sort, and that sign is from the testing zoo, because I decided I liked it too much to redo it. So, as you can see, I have some wolf statues there, and I'm building some foliage around it. I'll later recolor those wolf statues to fit better. Let's see. I want to talk, also I've considered doing like several animals, like having a few side animals, like a grizzly bear, I'm not quite sure beyond that, maybe a snow leopard, but that's a bit off. I feel like that seems a bit, because they're more tundra, I think, and this is more taiga and alpine, that kind of thing. So, we will see. It's not too far off. But I'd probably focus on the grizzly bear first, or maybe a different type of bear. But, the main focus will always be the wolves, and if we do that, then it's more of a, I guess, like a side story kind of thing. We would have an animal that is there mostly just like as a side attraction, just to keep things interesting, Here you can see me adding the ivy to the sign, and I'm, building up foliage around it to make it fit in more naturally. I think one of my strong points so far in this series is definitely the foliage. Mostly, I'm not really doing anything with, like, I don't have any knowledge of what most of these plants are, so some of them probably don't go well together naturally in like a real world, but I don't want this to be terribly realistic. I'm mostly just focusing on, does it look nice? Does it look like it could be possible? I want it to look like it could be realistic, but not necessarily be strictly realistic, if it makes sense. I want it to look like it's feasible, but not necessarily realistic, if that's a better term. So, as you can see, I'm just fiddling around with trees. Most of this part is just trees, but I will actually have a little lake later, more like a pond, with a bridge crossing over it, but I'm not completely done with, but I am partially done with, and I've completed one side of it, at the very least, the pond side, and then it feeds into a little creek. And I'm not quite sure where I'm going with that. but I figure it'll probably feed into a larger lake of some sort further down the line. So what I'm doing here is just basically building the guest area, and the staff area will probably be somewhere near here. I imagine there'll be a guest capacity on this zoo, if you can call it a zoo, because I don't want there to be like a flood of people. I want there to be maybe a few hundred at most, maybe less than. I'll probably experiment with what looks okay, but I don't want there to be a flood, because most like wolf sanctuaries, they have tours, not like floods of guests. Most of them you require reservations, or like you have to come on certain days to get a tour or something. One thing I found quite interesting was I was looking at a particular wolf sanctuary. I can't remember what it is for the life of me, but they had an actual camping area where you could like fall asleep listening to the howls of the wolves, and they had this little cabin, and it was really cool. And I'd like to replicate something similar in Howling Woods as well. I think that could be very fun, and I'm not very open to the idea, so we'll see how that works. What I'm building here is actually a little area to put some deer statues across from a sign. It's mostly just a fancy thing, just to make a statement, I suppose. And I end up fiddling with this path trying to get it to work, but it doesn't end up working, so I end up making it just grass, which I think looks better anyway. And then, but in the original testing zoo, I had an idea where I had like a scene where like these wolf statues were hunting deer statues, and you could see them kind of cornered against the wall, the deer were, and it was interesting, and I liked the idea, but I don't necessarily think it's best for like right next to the entrance, maybe somewhere else. Not quite sure what. I mean, you still kind of get that feel because the wolves on the other side, but I wanted to focus here on just, and also I feel like it gives a wrong impression about wolves too, especially for new visitors. Because they're thinking, oh, if they don't know a lot about wolves already, then they might think that, it's not necessarily they're more violent than they actually are. And in reality, wolves typically don't attack people unless they feel threatened, or their territory is encroached on, or they feel their pups are threatened, or something along those lines. And so they're not actually terribly aggressive, but they are territorial to some extent. But typically they'll actually avoid humans if they can, and they don't typically develop their territories around humans, unless they have no other choice. So, here you can see me using the tips of little trees sunk into the ground to make little saplings, which I thought looked really nice in the end. That fence, the little low fence there, is basically just to keep people from walking in on it, not much else. It's not really meant to keep anything in, it's just decoration for most part, and basically to say, hey, this is off limits. Don't climb on the statues, kids. Lots of trees. I really like the way, like I said, I really like the way the foliage and the landscaping turned out so far. I do think that I tried to stick to a somewhat loose color palette. I have basically all sorts of green, but if I'm coming to flowers, I've been focusing on purple, or I think I had pink azaleas near the bridge, and that was, about all I'm going to do for the flowers. I'm trying to avoid anything that is like a lot of wild colors, so basically I'll have, any shade of green is already pretty general, so I'm trying to limit the amount of flowers I have of different colors so that it doesn't look too crazy, I suppose. So here you can see me actually sculpting where the lake will be. It's a bit... I think that I end up like doing this and undoing this a few times because I realized that I can't make the bridge across it after I put water in. I actually got a tip from someone after the recording of this that I can actually make the bridge go over the water without worrying about because later I have to move the terrain back under the path, and I can actually make the path go over the terrain with, I think they said the G key, and I didn't know you could do that, so that will be something I will try, probably come back into next time I record, and just fix that up. See, I was trying to make a little archway, and then it was either too tall or too short. In the case of being too short, it meant it would stay out of bounds or whatever. You can't do terrain too steep, something. So I end up, yeah, that's what I end up doing. Creating the bridge with the actual terrain and then carving a path underneath the terrain for the water. And so I have to fiddle with that for a while. And so now you can see me kind of carving the path underneath the terrain, that sort of thing. Yeah. So it'll look a lot nicer when I have water on it, and it's, what's the word? When it's more progressed, I suppose. That's not really the word I'm looking for, but when it's more progressed, it'll look nicer. So, let's see. I think I'd start working on the lake next, or maybe it was the bridge, I can't remember. Yeah, I'm starting to work on the foliage around the lake. I kind of jump around a bit, but I had a lot of different foliage and plant life. I was trying to adjust, like put plants underneath the water, and at first it didn't work, but then I ended up changing the water to be a little bit muddier so that you can, so the actual bottom of the lake is a little, not as clear, so that you can also, make, better, so you can have things underwater that are kind of obscured, but you can still see them, if that makes sense. You'll see what I mean later on, when I actually do that. So you can see I'm trying to like have, there I'm doing it now. I'm trying to have some sort of foliage in there, and see the water's a bit dirtier, and so now I can add foliage in the bottom and it doesn't look really odd because of that. Although now I'm just adding a fence in. Which I copy and paste the same fence from the statue area to the bridge, and I think I adjust the height of it later in a few seconds here. Yep, there we go, I did that. And I have lily pads near the edge. I figured that so people could like lean over the railing if they're probably not supposed to, but I figure people probably would lean over the railing and touch them or something. Maybe. Hopefully they're not, but, or if they are, they're being safe about it. I ended up replacing these, I think they're alpine hollies or something, alpine something, with azaleas later because I think it looked a lot nicer. And that was kind of ugly, to be honest. But I have a giant log in there that's kind of sticking into the water. I thought it made a great shot. At the end of the video I had some photos. I had one that was right next to that. See, that's what I mean by the underbrush and underneath the water. And there I am replacing the azaleas, or replacing the alpine hollies with azaleas. I think it looked a lot nicer, and it also looks a little cleaner, more polished, which is around the bridge is kind of what I was wanting. So that's a good thing. And I don't know how close the video is to the end, but it's getting pretty close. But, yeah, so I guess one thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that, the series will be a bit of a more relaxed series, I'm hoping. It won't be scripted, it won't have a lot of, and well, some parts it will be like planned, but they won't be scripted, if that makes sense. Especially when we get into the story stages, it'll be more scripted, or more planned than scripted. Less freeform. Whereas now I'm not planning a lot out, I'm just kind of going with what looks good. Fiddling around and having fun with it. And, having ideas, letting my inspiration flow. But eventually that will not be as prominent, and I will start to work on the story. And I think some people that appeal to two different types of people. Some people will like the story aspect, some people will like the building aspect, some people will like both. Which I hope that, you'll find something for everyone. I'm hoping that you'll be able to watch the second part of the video without watching, or second part of a series without having to see the first part. I might even classify them as like separate playlists so that you understand that you don't necessarily have to watch both of them, you can watch them separately for sure. And so here we are, just finishing up around the lake, getting some more foliage in, and I believe we are nearing the end of the video, so I'm gonna go ahead and say bye-bye!